Good evening, my loyal listeners, and welcome to Wilhelm Presents Frightening Tales and Other Weird Stories. I'm your host, Wilhelm. Each week I invite you to dim the lights and settle in as we explore a dark and unsettling tale of the paranormal. Stories conjured by authors from all around the world. If you dare to share a fiction of your own, submit it at frighteningtales.com. And should you find yourself still wanting, more than 130 previous episodes await you, patiently, in the dark. Today's tale is written by an author who to this day remains the most excited I have ever met to have their story added to this show. Your excitement was rather infectious. The author in question is Jeremy Barber, a weird fiction psychological horror writer whose fiction is based in New England. His stories explore trauma, PTSD, the horror that stems from the ordinary becoming distorted. Currently, he's working on his first collection of interconnected horror stories. You can find him on Bluesky at JTBarberwrites. I'll post a link in the notes. Here's his tale, The Island. It had been about as uneventful of a night as usual. 10 p.m. go in service. Listen to dispatch give me a customary, "You don't always gotta be a smartass, Charlie," at the end of my call note, and then hide behind the Union Office Creek Square until I'd get the next call for service. Before I could radio in to go out of service, I heard the call coming in. Dispatch sounded borderline unbelievable. 76 mast holes called since the daily commute kicked off. Sightings of a new landform rising out of the water, causing all the looky-loos to gawk and stare while they gum up traffic. Thankfully, no accidents. Just a thicker traffic jam than what's stuffed inside a Dunkin' Donuts. I had to park the Plymouth on Hanover and hoof it down to Richmond to make it to the harbor. The narrow streets packed with commuters that had abandoned their routines to stare out at the strange new lump of land, as if they were silently calling out, faintly whispering to any passerby, drawing them in, away from the safety of their daily lives to drink in the excitement of something new, something unusual. It's not uncommon for these streets to be riddled with obstacles, people, trash, yappy pet dogs tangled up in their leashes. Today's crowd, seems different, more of a solid brick wall of bodies than a framed structure with windows to pass through. I inch my way one cobbled step at a time between the people I swore to protect, all the while thinking my oath has become more of an obligation. It takes entirely too long for me to reach the harbor, from the vehicles clogging up the roads to the immovable bodies standing stone still. I'm plenty used to these terrible tiny roads being choking points to traverse. Yet there is usually a flow in this city, unlike today. The day is certainly off. At the academy they told us, trust your gut, which may be the only lesson worth remembering. Finally, I get my first unobstructed look at what all this fuss is about. I peered out across this salty body of water hundreds of times. Sure, there's a common sense of serenity when taking in the bustling view of the busy tide line. Some say living by the sea, you never see the same scene twice, due to the ebb and flow of the current. Though I know in my deepest recesses, I ain't never seen this mass a half nautical mile before me. The island? A new large mass of patchy earth arching up out of the water. It's bobbing. I shake my head to regain my senses. No, surely that's simply the tide. The waves lapping against the new shoreline, yet I don't see that gradual rise from sea to land. It's more of a dense, dark wall that's puncturing the water's surface. As my eyes tracked up from the waterline, I found daylight where there shouldn't have been. A gap, water breaking beneath the land itself. I hardly noticed that briny smell anymore. When walking along the wharf, the air is full of that sharp and salty pungent perfume. Worst of all, when the air is thick and humid, forcing you to also taste that sickly seaweed flavor. But not today. Today, only the petrichor is in the air. All too unusual for this crisp autumn time, when the general foliage decay lingers in the air. Today smells too pure, almost inviting. My shoulder jerks forward. A thin, scrawny-looking gutter punk in her oversized Celtics hoodie and baggy trip pants pushes past me. Instinct takes over as she is walking towards the water, and I grab her arm. My hand feels like it sinks 2 inches into the sleeve of the hoodie before I feel her actual arm underneath. My cop voice comes out when I give a verbal command to stop, but it's to no avail. The girl continues to lean forward towards the water, fighting my grip like a tanker rocking with the tide against its anchor. I showed another command for her to stop, and that seems to at least have gotten her attention. When her head snaps back to look at me, her eyes, they make me shiver. Soulless, yet determined. A rage sparked inside her, bourbon brown eyes that began to shimmer red beneath the slate sky. Her mouth hangs partially open, spittle crusts at the corner of her mouth. Now, I've tussled with my share of doped-up suspects before. Dirt-covered street bums and some downright rat-nasty people. Yet none have ever had the stench of death on them like a 2-week-old corpse. Like I recognized to be radiating off this girl. Her skin was ashen, not just whitewashed and suffering from a nor'easter winter indoors. She was death marble, the kind of hotel bedsheet white that bodies get when they are drained after an autopsy. I felt my grip on her arm loosen as I stared dumbstruck at the sight of this walking corpse before me. And she jerked. Her arm pulled sharply from my waning grasp. A smirk crawled across her face as she backpedaled, turned towards the water, and dove off the edge of the harbor. Once my OODA loop completed, I lunged forward to catch her again, but the girl had bolted toward the edge in a full sprint. All I could do was watch as she planted one foot against a wooden bollard and launched herself over the edge of the pier into the choppy water. The splash echoed for eons in my mind as the cacophonous sound of her body entered the water. All the dominoes began to fall. The crowd erupted like Mount Tambora, and the edge of the pier became a vomitorium. Bodies bouncing around me like I was inside a pinball machine. My ears began to ring from the roar of feet pounding the ground while the crowd rushed the water. Clenching my fists and tucking my elbows into my obliques, I struggled to stand my ground, hunkering in position. Helpless washed over me as I watched person after person jump into the water. In the chaos, most bodies began plunging head first, limp and lifeless, like they had given in to the pandemonium and embraced the carnage instead of making such a profound leap as the first girl had. I wasn't sure if it was still raining or if I was soaked from the splashing and flailing into the brine. The last citizen from the crowd stumbled into the water and the silence became overwhelming. So much mayhem had my heart thumping with such intensity, not even box breathing was settling my nerves. I gave myself a solid smack across the face to rattle my body instead of having all that rattling rolling around in my mind. Primitive, but it seemed to do the trick. Standing myself back up from my hunkered position, I creeped toward the edge of the pier to inspect the aftermath. Reaching the barricade, my heart caught in my throat. Face down floaters, dozens of them, drifting toward the island. The litter of lifeless bodies gently filtering their way across the water toward the island made my knees buckle. Fearing them giving out and risking collapse, I clung to the top of the wooden beam, leaning against it for support. I had yet to hear back from dispatch since my arrival at Hanover Street. I fumbled for my two-way. The plastic was slippery between my pruned fingers. Clicking the push to talk, all I heard was the toneless mic click. So much for relaying any of this. The car radio might work, but I couldn't leave the scene unattended. I had to remain vigilant. I had to get to the bottom of what the hell was going on in my city. I continued to glare out at the strange mass surrounded by the people I swore to protect. My thoughts all raced together. What is this enormous mound in the water? Why did that girl look like the walking death? What caused all these people to charge into the water, and why didn't I join them? The water became clear, less crowded than a moment ago. The ebb and flow of the water returned, in and out. I could feel myself being pulled towards with each inhale. Deep breathe in, take a step, long breath out. Draw my feet together again and again. One breath at a time, one step at a time. Standing on the wooden barricade, the mast towered above me now. No longer just another island, it had become a beacon. My sense of duty returned, not only to those poor departed souls, now mere floating bones in the ocean, no, to all the people of the Commonwealth. I steadied myself and leapt into the frigid water. My plunge felt much deeper than I'd expected. Growing up along these shores, I've not once been afraid of the water. Opening my eyes beneath the surface, I struggled to make out what I was seeing. There was no sign of the island through the deep green of the harbor water. Gasping for breath as I breached, the island appeared taller somehow. Maybe I had drifted closer to it than I had anticipated. Rubbing the salt and brine out of my eyes, the island came into clear view. My neck grew sore as I craned upward to look and observe the behemoth. Was I closer than I'd expected to be already? I found no shore, only the mass of the island jetting out of the sea. Nor did I see any gulls that would otherwise be annoying me or other signs of life on the island. Instead, I saw daylight. This bleak rainy day held no rays of unobstructed sun yet. Here, coming up from beneath the sea, was radiant yellow, enchanting. I began to swim closer. Then the swell hit. The tide raised me like a bobber on a line that just got a bite. My stomach unsettled in the wild motion of the water. Higher and higher I rose, fear filling me for when the wave would crash. I felt the water tighten around me. All around me were hues of blue and green. I couldn't see the island from the sea. Catching a mouthful of water caused me to cough. The water tightened its grip around my torso, knocking the rest of the air out of me lungs. The light from the base of the island had vanished now. At this height, I could faintly make out the pier I'd been standing on before the chaos ensued. I could still move my arms, but that pressure kept tightening across my chest, choking from the consistent splash. My vision began to darken. The all too familiar pinhole sensation crept across my field of vision. I coughed out what water remained in my mouth with my last breath. Then, there it was. Masked by the island, I saw the being that had been dormant in the sea well before we came to inhabit this harbor. A creature with more right to reside here than us. In the pinhole closed, my mind observed all the ways humanity brought destruction, pain, and chaos into this world. I experienced separation at that point. As the grip from my perch released and I plunged below the welcoming tide, enveloped by the water, I glimpsed the faint red glow of the eyes of the mountain. A glow that followed me to the deepest depths. With empty lungs, eyes wide open and my body paralyzed, the red glow remained, unblinking.
Thank you, dear listeners, for venturing into the dark with me tonight. Return next week for another dark tale, lurking just beyond the veil. If you enjoyed your journey with me, support my work. Like, subscribe, rate, or leave a comment wherever possible. Most of all, share frightening tales and support the authors who dared to dream these machinations. Buy their books, read their writing, watch their videos, whatever you can. Until next time, when a new tale creeps across the airwaves, listen closely, if you're brave enough.